All right, looks like people are coming in pretty fast and furiously, so we will get started. Again, welcome everyone. My name is Jennifer Wright. I'm the Executive Director with the Canadian Agriculture Human Resource Council. Today, we will be discussing and carrying on the conversation that started last week in our webinar around supporting innovation and adoption of technology. Before we get too far into things, I do want to acknowledge that Canada is the home of more than 600 First Nations who have governed and managed these lands since the beginning of time. Our office gratefully acknowledges that we do work throughout the lands of the First Nations and that our office is located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. So before we jump into things, I'm just going to give a bit of an overview of our organization and some of the work that we're doing and lay some groundwork for the conversation that we'll have momentarily with our panelists, Daryl Petrus and John Fleischauer. The Canadian Agriculture HR Council is a national nonprofit organization. We've been around for about 19 years, and we work with industry to ensure that agriculture has the workforce that we need now into the future. We do a lot of labor market research, supply and demand, and looking where those trends are. We also do a lot of analysis of skills and bringing people together. Our vision really is to ensure that there's a qualified and accessible workforce to sustain a viable agriculture sector in Canada by driving those industry-led solutions to support workforce development and HR management needs. We are the primary center of reliable agriculture research, such as labor market information, and we have customized solutions available for workforce development and HR management. So in the spirit of collaboration, the Canadian Agriculture HR Council, or CAHRC, in partnership with the Canadian Federation of Agriculture and Food and Beverage Canada, have been working for almost 4 years now on a national workforce strategic plan for agriculture and food and beverage manufacturing. We've been very pleased to have the support of industry in this work through working groups and contributions to the work that we're doing. With this strategic plan, the real catalyst for this was to really address the labor shortages and workforce shortages that we've been experiencing across the value chain for a number of years. We really wanted to ensure that we're bringing industry together to talk about solutions and actions that we can work towards so that we can ensure that we do have that workforce that we need now into the future, and that we are not still experiencing such extreme labor shortages in the years to come. The Workforce Strategic Plan was developed by our industry stakeholders and really tried to break the quite a large issue down into manageable pieces. So looking at things around workplace culture and people, perceptions and awareness of the industry, skill development, immigration and foreign workers, as well as digitalization and technology. Of course, there's some overlying themes around infrastructure, data, inclusion, equity, diversity, Indigenous reconciliation, and profitability and competitiveness. This gives us a frame for our conversation for today, where we are going to be talking about one key area that has come up through this work that we have been doing, and it's really around supporting the adoption of automation, AI, and technology across the industry, and ensuring we have the workforce to support that adoption as well. Our research has showed us that technology adoption readiness really does increase productivity. And this is one of the driving factors around, why people or organizations look for technology. We also know that as part of our labor shortage and our aging workforce, that we are going to need to look at not just attracting enough people into our roles, but we also need to look at doing things a little bit differently. And that also includes increasing our productivity. Some of the factors our research showed about challenges in investing or impacting the adoption of technology is structural things such as lack of rural infrastructure, and then that capacity-based area where, ensuring that you have the skilled employees there that can do the work, that can adopt to the new environments, that can bring in the new technology and make it work effectively. We also need to make sure that you have a workforce in place that can maintain that new technology as well. And what our research also showed us is that there's some real realities for Canadian small and medium-sized enterprises and for our primary producers. When we're trying to invest and look at the best technology to be adapting. In our research, only 19% of Canadian SMEs considered themselves digitally advanced. But then when we looked at that adoption of even basic tech, there's still a lot of information and a lot of work to be done. There may be things like email and websites and things like that that are being digitalized, or AI might be used to support, but there's still a lot of opportunity for emerging technologies such as more AI and drones. Some of the things that we heard through our research about what's impacting this is things like investment, access to capital to support the investment in adopting technology, understanding what's out there and what's really going to work within small operations, medium-sized operations, and larger operations. And we do know that it's not enough to just buy that new technology and bring it into your environment. You do have to make sure that you have the right workforce in place, as I mentioned before. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as we get into our fireside chat. So today I'm really pleased to welcome two experts in this area with bringing both of them bringing different perspectives to this conversation. First, I would like to introduce Daryl Petras. He is the CEO of the Canadian Agri-Food Automation and Intelligence Network. Daryl has worked studied in agriculture sciences, specializing in economics with a degree from the University of Alberta, and has really had the opportunity early in his career to set himself up for long-term success under the influences of exceptional professionals who have mentioned him in the world of entrepreneurship and steeped him in the process of rigor required for a technology company to be built from the ground up. In his experience and passion for business and agriculture make him an ideal CEO and a really good candidate and expert for this conversation today as well. And we really appreciate the work that he's been doing to support our nation's economy and the development and investment in new technologies and innovations in our sector. Secondly, we have John Fleischhauer, who says he is also better known as Big Tall John. And we're really pleased to have John join us today as well. John is the president of Pivot and Edge, which is a company that really works to focus on small businesses and helping them grow and compete against more larger companies as well. So a real supporter of startups and ensuring that these new ag tech companies have the workforce that they need to support the innovation and work that they're doing. John studied biomedical toxicology at the University of Guelph and started his career in recruiting in 2004. He's worked in this space in a number of different roles, including leading Halogen Software's global talent acquisition functions. And he has been working within his new organization, or the organization that he's leading now, Pivot and Edge, for the last 8 years. You can also catch John as an author, TEDx speaker, and as part of the Disrupt HR speakers as well. So welcome to you both. And I'm going to just stop sharing my screen before I give you both an opportunity to introduce yourselves and to get the conversation going. Perhaps we can just turn it over, starting with Daryl. Daryl, if you'd like to just share a little bit more about yourself and about CAHRC and the work that you do and your organization does in supporting agriculture and agri-food innovation.
Appreciate that, Jen, and thank you for the warm introduction, the kind introduction, maybe even generous introduction. So a little bit more about myself, and just to kind of sum it up, and then diving into CAHRC. My background is ag tech on the service provider side for many years. When I say service provider side, I mean technology transfer, running programs that are associated with accelerators, even accelerator programs to help companies start, grow, and ideally scale. Scaling's always the additional magic, that where there isn't really a predefined formula. Happy to dive into that a little bit later. Now, what attracted me to Kane back in 2023 when I joined is the straightforward model. And before I get into that, I just want to share that we are also a national not-for-profit. We're funded by ISED, Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada. They are more than a funder. They're really visionary in terms of how they see our support for the ag community evolving and moving forward. So they've been a wonderful partner. We started in 2019 and really got our feet under us during COVID, which wasn't easy times for anyone, particularly a not-for-profit looking to fund ag tech projects. So we are known for three things. What do? We do three things. We connect, we create, and we cultivate. We're connecting the stakeholders in the community. We are funding, this is the creation part. We're funding technologies that have some momentum. They're solving problems that matter. And we can talk about how we do that. We're probably best known for our funding component. And we know that it's not just enough to fund technology. So beyond connecting, creating, we also cultivate the development of the market opportunity. We want to drive adoption of that technology, of that shiny widget or service. And we do that primarily to date through smart farm support. And we can talk about that a little bit later. We have had early results, and they've been pretty impressive with the money we've invested to date. More than I'd say more than 32 million of federal money invested to date. We've activated a commitment of over $70 million in private sector investments. So we're activating that private capital. And with follow-on investment that we've contributed to, right? We're not taking full credit for this by any means. We've been able to track our investments to link to over $500 million invested in data-driven ag tech jobs and moving toward commercialization in Canada. So good impact, seeing commercialization efforts, and I can't wait to get deeper into it. And I should add that we do have a couple of funding calls we just launched last week, and I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to chat a little bit more about that. But if not, everyone, please reach out. Thanks, Jen. Back to you.
Great, thanks, Daryl. That gives us a really good background and a good framing for our conversation coming up. John, could you share a little bit about Pivot and Edge and your background and experience in this area?
Yeah, I don't know how I follow Daryl. That was impressive. Ultimately, I'm a Southern Ontario farming community kid that has grown up to ultimately be leading a marketing company that helps solve a hiring challenge. Um, for years and years and years, the whole way that people connect with potential hires has been broken. It's been job postings, it's been the classified ads in the newspaper. When those don't work, the only thing that people or business owners could do is ultimately go to a headhunter or a recruiting company that charges ridiculous fees. So, what Pivot and Edge really is a marketing company that focuses on telling a company's story, the founder's story, the employee's story, to really draw the right people in that share their mission, their values, where they're going, and why they're doing it. Um, and we have done a ton of work with agri-food tech companies over the years, all across Canada. And coming from that farming community myself, it's been a pleasure to help farmers. Farmers feed cities, so it's been a pleasure to help the agri-food tech sector get the people that they need for a price that makes sense and in a process that's scalable for them. So it's been a pleasure, but ultimately we're a private sector company that helps organizations hire with a marketing first approach.
Excellent, John. Thanks so much for that. And certainly, I think both of you are going to frame this conversation and contribute to the conversation with very interesting perspectives. As I talked about a little bit in the opening, modern agriculture is really seeing that adoption of technology, AI, automation, all those things. We do know from some of our research as well that, when we're involved in agriculture, we see that happening day to day, and we see how it's changing workflow, and sometimes we don't even realize it. because we're just part of that process. But as we look to, you know, attract in people with the right skills and connect our messages out with non-agriculture folks, and you know, John, as you were talking about sharing the story of a founder and that kind of thing, I think agriculture and food actually has an opportunity to do a bit more of that as well when we're telling our story out to those folks that aren't interconnected in the work that we do every day. Maybe to start that conversation, I would be really interested to hear from both of your perspectives, what you're seeing in trends in automation and AI and technology adoption, you know, what's working, where you see some things that you really think are going to take off and help with maybe workforce shortages and that type of thing, and then where there might be some challenges. So maybe Daryl, if you could start off from your perspective, and then John chime in as well.
Sure, thank you. And I just want to add or comment on John's introduction, that storytelling piece, there's such a need. So pleased to see you're working in that space. I mean, as Canadians, we always say we need to tell our story better and more and talk about our successes. And I see that firsthand within Kane. So a little bit about AI, you know, trends, adoption. If I go back to 2000, I'll say 2017, I remember hearing a lot about AI and a lot of support organizations popping up, driving toward AI, but nothing in my little corner of the world, nothing in the space of actual commercialization or being close to commercial. Fast forward to today and looking at it through a data-driven ag tech cane lens, right? That's where we focus. We funded over 30 projects, and most of those are AI focused or involve a component of AI. And it's just wonderful to see in these projects we funded, the focus on problem solving, understanding the problem, not just noticing that there is a problem, but understanding the problem, and then driving toward true commercialization. And a couple of examples come to mind. One is a company called Super Geo AI. Here's an example of where grain grading has been automated with use of AI. In the past, and actually today, I think the industry standard is using the human eye, which is, you know, prone to error, prone to subjectivity. And here we have databases of many pictures, probably millions of pictures of grain, and we can associate the grade with using AI with you know, the quality of the crop and the output from the technology, that AI technology. Why is that relevant? Well, if a farmer has access to this technology in the field, and it's the same technology that's being used in the value chain, the farmer will know if they should let the crop lay in the field in canola, in the case of canola, cure a little bit longer, and so they get that ideal grade, or if they need to, you know, get in that field today because they might lose quality. There's an objectivity layer there. Now, going back to Super Geo AI as a company, and we're talking about employment, this company has grown from essentially one person to, you know, probably a couple dozen people in a couple of years. So they're matching the technology of the problem, and they're getting really good traction right now. I can go on, and we see robotic or automated autonomous electric um, electric weeders, robot weeders, and it's really exciting space to be in. Now, all of this is interesting and exciting, but if we think back to all the projects we've invested in, which is just a handful of the great projects across Canada, we need to think about adoption. And farmers they're risk tolerant for sure. I mean, they're in that business. It's a risky business, but their risk tolerance is at capacity. So we really need to convince the farmer that there's strong value in the solution that's being proposed. And that, you know, there are a few ways to do that, and Kane really believes in the smart farm system to demonstrate, validate. You know, one smart farm could, and I'm going really a little bit deeper into our model, but it is driving toward that adoption piece. A smart farm is, for the audience, is a farm that has the capacity to test technology against the industry standard with some rigor in an actual farming environment, typically affiliated with academics or government organizations. And I say one smart farm is like a test customer network across Canada, even though we're not quite there yet, would be like a test market. Does the technology work in central Alberta? Does it work in southern Ontario? So I think we have some work to do to drive the adoption piece. Exciting solutions, but we could definitely get more traction there.
Yeah. Great, Daryl. I think that's gives us really good perspective and kind of aligns with some of the things that we saw in our research around adoption as well. We created an adoption of tech tool that farmers or anyone really could go through and take a look at. And some of the things that you've mentioned are definitely in that research and in the tool as well. And you know, that scalability and adoption at different sizes. I think the Smart Farm network or smart farm system really helps with that as well, because it makes it a bit more accessible. John, from your perspective and the clients you're working with, I know you work with a lot of ag tech companies, so the companies that are developing the technology that may be available for agriculture or food manufacturing companies. What are you seeing as far as trends in the type of jobs that they're looking to hire, the area of work that they're doing, you know, where they really think they're going to get some traction, and you're seeing growth in companies because their technology is being adopted or well received by whether it be producers or farm or food processors?
Yeah, great question. So to Daryl, just to kind of piggyback one of Daryl's comments, the whole idea of the standard was to look at a grain of, I think you said grain, Daryl, of canola.
Yep.
Is that the right?
Right.
Yeah, so a grain, that was the
Oilseed, yeah.
standard. We have worked with companies that um, are developing computer vision AI technologies that they can mount on ATVs to then drive through their crops and get an assessment of, you know, is it getting enough water? Is it growing at the right capacity? Is it, you know, where it should be? And I think the thing with AI, truthfully, I was a late adopter to AI myself. Pardon me, I've got a cough. Something as simple as ChatGPT. I have a love-hate relationship with ChatGPT, and the reason being is I enjoy writing, and what I don't enjoy is when people leverage AI to do the job for them, as opposed to use the tool to improve their own productivity, sort of thing. So, um, I see a lot of organizations, whether it be agri-food tech or SaaS or whatever industry, putting out, you know, job descriptions. And my lens is within the lens of hiring. Um, I'm saying, how do I write a job description, or how do I write a job post to share this job? And they all sound the same. They all read the same. There's no emotion to it. There's no humanity to it. And to come back to how you introduced me, one of the big things that I pride myself on, and what Pivot and Edge is all about, is, I guess, the humanification of hiring. And AI is here. It's not a matter of will it replace jobs. It will. It already has. It's going to continue doing so to a certain extent. But if we leverage it to make us smarter and make us more efficient and make us more productive, that's a win, because regardless of what that camera tells you, you still need a human to go and actually touch that canola grain or that apple or that pepper or what have you. So the trend that I've been seeing the past couple of years is everyone, I don't want to say everyone, but the majority of the market is adopting AI in some capacity within their hiring process, as well as their, I guess, talent management philosophy with internal employees. So we've seen a lot of organizations start leaning more towards AI for things like customer support and chatbots and agents and so on and so forth. I think all that's really good, because that frees up time to actually focus the human hours on things that matter, that can innovate the business moving forward. Um, from a job seeker lens, um, it's a really complicated time to be looking for a new job, because on the one side, you don't know if this is a job that could be replaced by AI. Maybe it could, maybe it can't. You don't know if the company has used AI to generate the job posting. You may use AI, generative AI, to cater your resume to the job posting that may have been generated by AI, and it becomes a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. And by the time you actually get to have a human conversation, you may be talking to a stranger. Like, it's one of these things where I was on the phone with I'm a Bell customer, and I was trying to change my plan a couple months ago, and I had to go through like 20 minutes of chat just to get to a human. That's not a great experience. Now, it wasn't a bad enough experience for me to switch to TELUS or Rogers or whoever, but it's one of these things where I think the trend that I'm seeing is AI is the I don't want to say sexy, but like it's the popular thing right now that everyone wants to learn more about. I think there are companies that are leveraging it really, really well. And there's a bunch of people that are just experimenting with it, and that's fine. But we're in a weird spot where picking up the phone, if you're a job seeker, picking up the phone and calling the hiring manager is 10 times better than doing an AI email and an AI LinkedIn and an AI resume and all that stuff. But we're so accustomed to immediate gratification and getting it done fast. My concern and why I have a love-hate with relationship with AI is I still think there's value in getting instant feedback and instant improvement, but you still have to put your own human piece to it, and so many people don't, and that's what's creating so much noise online that looks the same.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think those are very valuable points, and certainly what we're seeing in from a workforce development and support side, as we try to ensure that the workforce is there and ready to adopt new technology, is not losing that human side. So, you know, if you're a small business, you're an ag tech company or a producer, and you're looking at new technology to bring in, as you say, John, you can't lose that human element. So, you know, take the time to understand that this is for example, a workplace culture shift because you're bringing in new technology. Make sure your team has the right skills set there to support that technology and all that kind of thing. So you can't lose the human side. And I often give this example, and it's probably a bit overused, but as we look at technology as well, we know that, you know, if you bring a dishwasher into your kitchen, you still have to rinse the dishes, load it, unload it, put the dishes away, all that kind of thing. So the technology can help. It maybe changes your workflow, but it doesn't always take away the number of people that you need. It changes the skill set that you need. And that kind of brings us to our next point of conversation around productivity. Certainly productivity is something that we're all looking at. All industries across Canada are considering. It's a federal government priority as well to ensure that we're increasing our productivity across the board. I think Canada has typically, as a nation, fallen a bit behind productivity levels compared to other countries. But you know, when we look at workforce shortages, we know that like in primary production, for example, over 100,000 jobs going unfilled. We're very, very fortunate to have temporary foreign workers to help with a significant amount of those vacancies, but we still have a lot of vacancies there. We have a lot of retirements coming. We have rural workplaces, all sorts of different things contributing to the future of our labor supply. Productivity and bringing in technology and automation is a way that we can maybe help as one of the pieces to address the shortages. And I would really be curious to hear from both of you about what opportunities you think there are with new and emerging technologies that you're seeing to help increase that productivity piece.
Joe, do you want to go first? You want me to
Sure,
go?
maybe I'll jump in, and I just want to say that I fully agree with that human component, that human piece. So as we think about productivity, what we're seeing is AI is creating a lot of opportunity, but I don't see it displacing jobs right now, right? And I think that's interesting. It changes the jobs, as you mentioned, Jen. It changes them for sure, but it doesn't displace them. And let me give you an example. In my world, I'm going to think about dairy from an agriculture perspective. Labor is a huge issue. You know, dairy farmers work incredibly challenging hours. I know this because I was raised on a dairy farm, and I have met a dairy farmer who switched to robotic milking. And I'll say that I might still be in the dairy business today if there was a robotic milker when were deciding whether to sell or not. Robotic milking, they thought, would be the solution that would free up their time and help them to operate more like a 9 to 5 business. And what happened was they took that approach at first, but what they realized is they were missing that hands-on component with the dairy. You know, milking the cow, understand the behavior of the cow, watching the cow move when it comes into the parlor, however it's being milked, right? They weren't there to watch it all and observe. And there was a herd health management component that was lost. And as a result, the business suffered. So they realized that, even though they had freed up this one rule, now they could really refine how they manage their herd, overall herd health, and they took more time to invest in other ways to observe how the herd was producing. So it was a shift. Nobody lost their job, so to speak. They hired help, right? It was just okay. Now there's more time to focus on other things that we count as critical and other ways to observe the cattle. So that's one example of how we see a shift in that job piece and the productivity changes too. Overall, in the end, that herd productivity is going up because now they're not spending their time on as much labor activity. It's more about managing the business rather than working in the business. Now we see other examples of productivity going through the roof. And when I think productivity, I'm also linking that to profitability. Like we're trying to lower input costs, we're trying to drive revenue. And there's an environmental component that we don't talk about. These kind of um, co-products, if you will, of productivity and using AI. And I'll give another example. Precision agriculture. So we have information from mapping being fed into the applicator equipment, whether it's the seeding, it's the fertilizer, it's the pesticides, and that equipment is now giving the precise amount of whatever the input is into that field. We're thinking broad acres. When I was young farming, I would go into a field and we'd apply X pounds per acre on the whole field. X pounds, sorry, of fertilizer per acre. Now that can be precisely monitored, managed on a minute scale. So in the end, farmers are either applying more inputs because the land needs it, or which results in optimal revenue, or they're dialing back the inputs, saving on cost, saving on environmental impact, right? Um, but there's a productivity piece that I'm seeing, right? And I'm standing on a pedestal here and preaching it, but I come back to the adoption piece as well. And I there are a number of components of the adoption piece that we need to consider. So we think about, adoption is driven by return on investment. Now, I could talk farmers, but I could also talk consumers in general, right? What is the benefit for me, return on investment? I also think of that as risk of investment. Let's not just think squarely in terms of the financial returns on paper. Let's think about the risk of investment. And some of some of the factors include connectivity, cybersecurity, right? So these are creating new challenges, new learning opportunities, and new demand for different skill sets. And also, and this is a big one in my world, is the company going to be around long enough? This new company who's presenting a new technologies is going to be around long enough to support me as I try the technology next harvest season, which is, pick your number of months away. And if it is around long enough, are they going to have the capacity because everybody else using the technology runs into the same problem when they're actually using it in the field, in the commercial application? Everyone else who's purchased this technology runs into the same problem. Are they going to be able to take my call? What's the customer service going to be like at that point? Number of factors go into hesitation around adoption. So productivity on paper looks great. I think we need to think long and hard about how we can really convince the farmers or the consumer in general about the risk of their investment. And I'm seeing that this is a shift, and we've already touched on it for sure, but it's also a shift in the workforce expertise. And it mentioned cybersecurity. We can come back in greater detail, but I'll just share for the audience here, and many of the audience members might be aware of this, but there are cases where dairies who've switched to robotic milkers, continuing with that theme, they've been held for ransom because someone's hacked their system and the cows aren't being milked. And the farmers are being asked to deliver a sum of money. And these hackers are so sophisticated that they know how much that farmer is probably willing to pay in a short notice because the cows don't get milked, the cows don't produce milk, right? We say they dry up. So now the farmer's like $10,000 to milk my cows. I got to do this. These cows need to be milked today, until it escalates, until you need to get some more expertise involved. But that's the key piece, right? The expertise. We need to make sure we're training along the way for that expertise, whether it's that return on investment, risk of investment, or just risk overall.
Yeah, I think those are very great points. And, I do think we talk a lot about productivity, and it's not just about the productivity of the workforce, it's productivity of the outputs and the cost of production, and bringing down that cost of production to ensure, we're getting more food available, keeping the price of production down so that our food costs are reasonable and all that kind of thing as well. I think the cybersecurity issue is definitely a keen topic and something that often gets overlooked as we, do that push on the new bright shiny thing to bring into your operation. But what does that also mean from new business risks and that kind of thing as well?
New
John,
job
what are your thoughts
opportunities.
on this?
Sorry, sorry, Jen, I missed what you
Sorry,
said.
John, what are your thoughts on this
So
topic?
couple things, Daryl. First of all, I'm terrified of cows. I paid for my university by working construction for a local renovation company in Fergus, Ontario, and Tom Robinson, the owner, had a hobby farm, and he had dairy cows. And I remember we would throw without the nails or the screws, but old drywall waste we would put into their pen or whatever so they could stomp on it and so on and so forth. And there was one time that one of the guys threw a thing of drywall in with a screw in it, and I was the guy. I was the young guy. I was like the newbie. John, get in there and get rid of that thing. And I was terrified. Cows are massive. But anyway, the whole idea of, when we're looking at the labor market, we're looking at innovation, we're looking at how technology is changing our normal. We're kind of at a point similar to when computers became normal. Like, I grew up with my parents doing their taxes on pencil and paper. And I remember in math class, we had that paper with all the grids on it, all that kind of stuff. And now kids get an iPad before they get a bicycle. Like, technology is moving very, very fast. It's changing our perspective of what is normal. And as it relates to AI specifically, I think the biggest challenge that we're facing is there's no real to address, Daryl, the adoption issue. There's no real education on how to adopt AI and how to adopt new technology, especially how fast it's growing and how fast it's accelerating right now. So, the robotic milker thing, I have friends from high school that grew up as dairy farmers as well, and they had those machines to do that. Um, but in terms of how do you get this to go across at scale, there's an education piece missing, I think. And it's not just for the end user, it's also for the students and the potential hires, the job seekers. What do I seek in education now? Like, do I go and get a general degree or a community college diploma? Like, what do I even study these days? Because, Gerald, to your point, is not only is the company going to be around for 2 years, is the job going to be required in 3 years? Like, am I training myself in something that's relevant and has stay power over the years? We don't know yet. I think one of the big things that we really need to focus on isn't just, I think AI is the future. I think we all know it's coming. It's already here. It's going to be adopted into pretty much everything that we do, live, work, and play wise. But we need to have some sort of system that educates people on how do you write a prompt? How do you understand the pros and cons of what your prompt may be? If you do go to an AI generated herd management profile, when should I actually talk to my cows? Like, when do I actually go in the field and, pet them and stuff? Like, there's a piece missing right now, and I think it's normal because the advancements are coming so fast that we're in that learning curve right now. But we're learning so fast that in the past, when it was computer time, it was a relatively easy switch in comparison to now, because what we understand of AI today versus next week is going to be two different things. Back in the 80s, that transition took like a year, maybe 2 years, that sort of thing. So I think when we look at the labor force, certainly I do believe we're always going to need people to keep the bees, so to speak. We're always going to need human hands on the actual work environment, whether it be dairy, whether it be canola, whether it be bee farming in general. We're always going to need that human connection. But I think one thing that we're missing right now is that there's such a focus on how fast AI is accelerating. To Daryl's point, not everyone is adopting it. We have to bridge that gap, and I think we have to do that through education, and that will lead into what does the talent market do? Because people may not want to go for a degree or a diploma if they don't think it's valuable, in 3 years. And we can Google everything these days. We can go to ChatGPT and say, how do I do this? There are times my degree is in biomedical toxicology. I used to have to draw the individual amino acids chemical format. I don't even know what the amino acids are anymore. Like, that was my choice to not go into that industry. But if we want to have a sustainable workforce, we have to create the environment that is sustainable for them, that they also see value in and want to buy into.
Yeah, and that really leads us in well to our probably our last kind of point of discussion before we open it up to Q&A from the audience. But certainly something we see a lot in our labor market information as well is, the industry has a labor shortage. So as we talk about this adoption and we talk about the right skills and we talk about all of that kind of thing, we need to figure out different ways to ensure that we're not only attracting new people into the industry that bring the skills that are maybe now required and support this new technology, like AI and automation, but that we actually have a way to upskill and reskill our current workforce so that we're retaining them in the workforce as well. Because we're certainly not in a situation where, we can bring in new technology and not worry about retaining the great workforce that we have already. So that's definitely an area we have to look at. Just before we open it up, I'd really like to kind of build on some of the things you've both said around supporting this adoption. Small companies not knowing if they're going to be around, certainly knowing from a producer point of view, or a small company looking at big dollar signs in what someone might be trying to sell them as far as innovation and a new technology to implement in their business. Are that, how do you decipher what your real true return on investment is going to be? Is it worth your return on investment? And do you know that you're going to be able to rely on that company being there in the long term to support your adoption of the technology that they're bringing? How do we ensure that, as we try to work through all of this, that we do attract the right people in with the right skills, that we do get that upskilling, reskilling opportunity? And I know we've done a lot of work and just at the post-secondary level of trying to connect in with students in engineering programs and environmental science programs and that kind of thing to expose them to agriculture. And some of our perceptions research has shown that if you're not tightly connected with the industry, or you're not exposed to agriculture or food processing, you might not really understand it. Our perceptions research showed that folks not with non-ag backgrounds look at the industry and think that the only occupation in the industry is being a farmer. Obviously, probably the most important occupation across the industry. But there's so many other ways for people to be involved in so many other career paths and jobs. So how do we retain and attract in that right skill set to really support a positive and successful environment in Canadian agriculture and food, and make sure that we're kind of moving forward and becoming that global leader in automation and adoption of technology as well.
Daryl, may I jump in here? And
Please
then,
do.
so maybe maybe it's a spicy opinion, but I don't believe that we have a labor shortage at all, honestly. I think when you look at the number of jobs available versus the people that are looking, there's a lot of organizations that haven't really changed their perspective, and they just say, here's the job, here's what it pays, do you want it? And that's it. And the organizations that are really telling their story, and they're saying, okay, if in the event we were to adopt ABC technology and that could save us XYZ in dollars, are they revisiting what they're paying their employees? Are they revisiting the benefits they give to their employees? Are they this may not be relevant to everyone on the call, but the whole idea of during the pandemic, everyone worked from home, and now tons of companies are forcing employees to move back into the office, creating a whole lot of drama and traffic and all that stuff. And I understand that working in the office has its benefits as well. Like, I was an office guy for years and years and years. And I see the benefit of being able to go have a water cooler chat with your colleague and a whiteboard session on the cup. But in terms of the labor shortage, so to speak, I think a lot of that has to do with what is the company willing or able to provide employees to draw them in the first place. And if it's a scenario where you must be at this location between these hours on these days, and the pay hasn't changed, but the technology has, you're not motivating people to want to be part of your story. You're basically getting people to do what they were doing with better tech, and they don't care. Like I think the whole idea of, well, one of the ideas of how we can solve the challenge is, if there is technology that we think can support the business, then make that call. But then also create an environment where the people that you're bringing in are also getting rewarded because of that advancement, um, not just to give you more revenue and give you more efficiency. Like, if you want people to do the hard work, give them the right tools, but also reward them. And it's a challenging time because a lot of the AI technology out there right now is not proven, so it's seeking early adopters and so on and so forth. Generally speaking, when a tech is really successful, the early adopters are the most successful as a result. We can't just flick a light switch and say, yeah, this is going to be a game changer or not. So there are going to be cases where business owners are going to have to determine, is the risk worth it for me, and if so, what does that mean to my business in terms of people? But even my old man just turned 76, and I'm still teaching him how to use an iPad. Giving him better tech doesn't make him a better dad. And the same thing comes true as it relates to your business and your people. Just giving them better tech doesn't make them more productive. You have to do the tech with the people development, and you have to reward the people to do so. And if that means you hire 3 people instead of 10, you're still ahead.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very interesting perspective for sure. Daryl, what are your thoughts?
I appreciate John's perspective. That's interesting. And certainly I can think of a number of scenarios where that holds true. I think I would challenge that in certain farming scenarios, or maybe many farming scenarios. So if we think about a feedlot, for example, intensive beef production operation, um, might have 3,000 animals, might have 100,000 animals. But let's talk about the 3,000 animal scenario. There are years when the profits aren't good or they're even negative, but let's say it's $10 a head. It's not a good year. $30,000 is what the profit is. How do you paint that picture differently to the general workforce to say, you come work for us for $15 an hour, you're going to be in all kinds of weather, you're going to be out there checking cattle. I can't, as the owner, look after 3,000 animals myself, 5,000 animals myself. I need the help. You're going to look to probably foreign temporary labor, or people are really dedicated lifestyle who really enjoy that kind of work and they're passionate about it. And I don't see, in some cases, I don't see a quick solution for that scenario. And it's really difficult to repackage that messaging on that job opportunity. Greenhouses might be the same, right? The margins overall might be narrow. And I know greenhouses have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars or even shut down because they couldn't find the labor. So they're turning to the automation. So it's a matching of expectations for sure. I think what I like to say, and it's a little bit cliche, is we need to make agriculture sexy. And I'll give you an example. I heard this story secondhand, so take it with a grain of salt. But there was a venture capitalist, and I heard this from the venture capitalist, talking to a postdoc who was talking about growing plants in harsh environments, low water, low irrigation, not ideal soil conditions. And the venture capitalist who invests in ag predominantly said, "Oh, great, you're an ag, so am I." And they said, "I am not in agriculture. I'm working for NASA. Like, don't bring me down to an ag level." And it's all food production, right? Food security. So I do see a shift happening. Going back to some of what John said, I see a shift happening in expectation matching and communication. For example, I had the pleasure of touring Waterloo University about a year ago now, and they were shifting a portion of engineering course load to at least introduce agriculture as an opportunity. I think that's just wonderful. I think if we get more attention to agriculture and the fact that we can move innovation very quickly from ideation to commercialization without the regulatory hurdles that come with like a health application, human health application. It's easier to see, especially in data-driven ag tech where we work, we see those turnarounds in like 3 to 5 years in some cases, really exciting. So I think it's about messaging on the excitement that's available, the big business opportunities that are there, and the support for food security. But I also think we can't forget that when we talk about jobs and we talk about becoming a leader in innovation in Canada, there's a whole community that needs to be considered, and there's expertise at many levels that's required, and this feeds into that job conversation. So when I think about labor, I think about uh, I think about primary labor, if I could phrase it that way, right? Like heavy lifting kind of labor. But there's also the need for business expertise. I go on, list here, but if we want to build a community that's driven toward success and innovation, and we're trying to keep an eye on and predict where the jobs are going to be, business expertise to grow and scale companies. We don't have a lot of that here. In fact, I see organizations importing that from other countries. I'm looking forward to us building that capacity. We need to have people who are willing to get more involved in the investment side in agriculture, right? We need to have government people who are focused on regulations and policy, public policy, public dollars to spark private dollar investment happens many places in the world very successfully. UK, Australia, US. It's not happening to the same degree in Canada, although we're making strides in that direction. Make sure that there's a technology transfer component with our ideators. I'm thinking about the post-secondaries for any students on the line, right, that are thinking about innovation. Do we have a streamlined process there, equipped as well as it could be? So lots of skill sets that will contribute to a successful innovation community in Canada.
Yeah, no, very good points by both of you, and certainly a very interesting conversation and lots of different perspectives to think about as we, really try to support that adoption and ensuring that we're taking the industry to the next level within Canada as well as we move forward. We have just a few more minutes. If there's any, we can probably take 1 or 2 questions from the audience. You can put them in the chat or the Q&A box. Just hold on for a minute or two. We don't seem to have any questions. That must mean that that we've really done a great job at covering off the topics and covering off the main areas of the conversation, which is great. I do want to before we go, just let everyone know that this is kind of the middle of our webinar series. We do have additional webinars coming up in the, let me just get my slide here so it's good for everyone to see. We do have 2 more webinars coming up, one focused on infrastructure and workforce attraction and retention that will support some of the things we've talked about today as well. And then another around the North American workforce trends and the impacts of the tariffs. We also would like to let everyone know that we will be really focusing this conversation and building on some of the great points we've had today with John and Daryl through a 2-day national summit. It'll be taking place in Toronto. The registration is free. We have a QR code there as well, and really wanting to ensure that everyone gets part of that conversation, as we can see today by John and Daryl's points and very strong perspectives in different areas, that this isn't an easy topic. There's lots of different things to consider, but there's a lot of opportunity there as well, and certainly something that I think, as we've said, is often running across the industry, but there's a lot more room for increased adoption, more investment in these emerging technologies to support the industry as well. So with that, I just want to give a very heartfelt thanks to Daryl and John for sharing your time, your perspectives, your expertise on this topic. Thanks to everyone for attending today as well. The webinar has been recorded and will be shared on YouTube. And so you'll be able to catch this conversation again if you like, or share it with your network as well. Looking forward to seeing everyone again in a couple weeks' time, and when we take that conversation to the infrastructure side of things. And thanks again to John and Daryl for your participation.